Welcome back to Dixie Alley Weather Center. My name is Caleb Crick, and welcome to another monthly prediction video. In this video, I will be giving you my predictions and my forecast based off of models, weather charts, and climate analysis to give you an idea of what kind of weather we could see across the Dixie Alley this month. So, without further ado, let's get right into it. So let's first start by taking a look at the temperatures we could see across the Dixie Alley as we go throughout the month of October. This is for the first week of October, the week that we're already in right now. For the rest of this week, we expect generally below average temperatures for much of the Dixie Alley. That includes central and eastern portions of the Dixie Alley, including Alabama, Georgia, South Carolina, and North Carolina being the hot spots. Also portions of eastern Tennessee into the Appalachian Mountains being the hot spots, and parts of the panhandle of Florida with some below average temperatures, a little bit cooler temperatures that you don't normally see this time of year, just a little bit cooler, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. And I'm not saying that these areas aren't going to be seeing some level of above average temperatures in some ways over the next couple of days. Once again, I'm just making educated guesses on some of these models. As they get farther off into the future, it's a little more of a guess, a little more of a wait and see. But for now, the main depiction is that these areas are going to be below average for at least the first week of October for many of these areas, especially as you get into the darker shadings, more below average temperatures in these areas, at least for the first week. And then the areas that we expect to be a little bit above average, at least for the first week of October, it is farther off to the west and farther off to the north. Most of the Dixie Alley, like I said, is going to be a little bit cooler than average, but farther off to the west, as you get into farther western portions of Mississippi and most of Louisiana, we start to get those above average temperatures, hotter temperatures. It's looking like Louisiana, going throughout the next couple of days even, is going to start seeing some of those hotter temperatures, and then areas central and southern Florida, like we've been seeing over the past couple of months, we're going to continue to stay above average with temperatures being in the mid to upper 80s and possibly some low 90s. Moving on to week 2, this would be October 8th through October 14th, and you can see we have a big change throughout much of the Dixie Alley. There is no area highlighted for below average temperatures, and I'm not saying, once again, that some areas won't be below average, especially the farther you go out to the north. That's why I have this area highlighted right here, because there's kind of some uncertainty with a lot of the models up here in areas like the Appalachian Mountains for temperatures. Some areas are depicting that there will be some below average temperatures here. Some of the models are depicting that there will be much above average temperatures here. So that's why it's kind of a guess here as we go into the second week of August. Second week of October. This would be October 8th through October 14th. Kind of a guess here. But most of the United States, most of the Dixie Alley, for that instance, is going to be above average. And then the farther you go out to the south and west, the higher the temperatures will be. Louisiana looks like they're going to be baking in the heat down there, above average temperatures. We will likely see temperatures in the 90s, possibly some even record high temperatures as we go into the second week of October. The farther you go out to the east, once again, it's a little bit cooler. Areas like southern Florida will be on the lower end of the spectrum for the first time in I don't know how long. But the main story is that most of the Dixie Alley, as we go into the second week of October, is going to be seeing those above average temperatures. Once again, some areas will see some below average, some areas will see more above average. But this is just a general depiction of what we're going to be seeing going into the second week of October. And as we come towards the end of October, we do expect, once again, another big shift in the temperatures. We're going to start to see this weather pattern change a lot throughout much of the Dixie Alley as we go throughout many of the weeks. There's going to be every week tells its own story. We're likely going to see some the return of some below average temperatures, likely in the form of some cold fronts that will be pushing out of the northwest. That will cause some more rain, showers, and thunderstorms, and some cooler temperatures behind that will be factoring in behind that. The farther you go out to the south and the farther you go out to the west, areas like Louisiana, once again, looking like you guys are going to still remain above average for much of the month of October. Once again, if you live in Louisiana, I'm not saying that you guys aren't going to be seeing below average temperatures to some extent in some areas at some point of time. You definitely will at some times. Once again, and I'm not always right. Sometimes farther you go off into the future, it becomes more uncertain. But we do expect to see still a level of above average temperatures the farther you go off to the south and west, and still portions of Florida, southern Alabama, along the Gulf Coast remaining pretty warm as we go into the third and fourth weeks of October. But the further you go out to the north and farther you go out to the north and east, you can see much below average temperatures are expected. That's one thing that we get that we have more certainty of. We are going to start to see those more fall-like temperatures, below average temperatures, the deeper we go into October. With that being said, here's a look at kind of an overview of the temperature spans that we're going to be seeing across the Dixie Alley throughout the month of October. Exactly what areas are going to be seeing what kind of temperatures, and what areas are going to be seeing above average and below average temperatures. Here's a look at the main perspective here. North Carolina, below average temperatures. We're expecting basically below average temperatures for most of the month of October. Once again, we will see some above average temperatures, especially into week 2, as much of the Dixie Alley will be above average with that high pressure that will start to build. But generally, below average temperatures are going to be the main story across parts of North Carolina, which is not necessarily a bad thing. Like I said, that is a good thing. It'll feel a lot cooler throughout this month than it normally does. South Carolina and Georgia, though, slightly below average, not as below average temperatures expected. But for most of the month of October, because we are going to be having a lot of rain over the next couple of weeks, we expect slightly below average temperatures for much of South Carolina and Georgia. Once again, doesn't mean you won't see above average temperatures, but the main story is going to be slightly below average temperatures for these two areas. Florida and Louisiana looking pretty much above average for most of these areas. We'll see some below average temperatures. But for most of the month of October, we are going to be seeing those pretty hot temperatures throughout much of the area. And Florida, that does change the farther you go out to the north. Parts of the Panhandle will see some below average temperatures, but the main average is above average. And then Tennessee and Alabama, we are kind of uncertain about these two. These are going to be jumping back and forth between above average and below average temperatures. The average of all the temperatures is going to be about average. But we will see some below average temperatures and some above average temperatures throughout many of the weeks of October, throughout portions of Tennessee and Alabama. Mississippi going to be slightly above average, though, as we go into much of the month of October. So let's now talk about the rainfall. What kind of rainfall, how much rain are we going to be seeing throughout the month of October? Well, here's a look at week 1 of October. The rainfall that we could see, you could see the East Coast and parts of the Gulf are pretty much going to be soaked. We're expecting that buildup of moisture and rain as we go into the first and second weeks of October. We're going to see a lot of rainfall, potentially record amounts. The farther you go off to the west coast of Florida, going to be seeing some very high totals. Some chances of some flash flooding, especially in those urban areas, is going to be a possibility. Florida looking like the hot zone, and then portions of South Carolina, Georgia, and parts of southern North Carolina with a lot of rainfall as we go throughout this week. We're going to be seeing a lot of many days with some showers and thunderstorms building across the area, especially as we go into the next couple of days. This will really start to spread across much of these areas as we go throughout the first week. The farther you go out to the west, though, we're going to start to see those below average temperatures for portions of Mississippi, northern Louisiana, and parts of Tennessee. That's just going to increase the drought risk drought with a lot of these areas, especially with these areas farther off to the west being hotter than normal. We're going to see a lot of drought start to build in. So you will probably need to get out there and water your flowers in the flower garden. It's going to be a pretty hot and dry start, at least, to October, the farther you go out to the west. Farther you go out to the east, going to be a soaker, though. As we go into the second week of October, you can see the story really remains the same. We're going to have still wetter conditions across much of the central and eastern Dixie Alley, while farther out to the west and spreading across the north, we're going to be seeing those drier conditions. Some drought conditions will start to appear. Once again, this is still farther out into the future. We still will have some rain in these areas. It's not like it's record low amounts of precipitation. We will still see some rainfall across these areas. This is just the general depiction of averages. The below average, the farther you go out to the north and west, really most of the areas will be about average, especially parts of Louisiana, parts of Alabama, into portions of North Carolina. Really normal rainfall is going to be occurring in most of these areas. Portions of Mississippi, western Tennessee, we're going to be seeing some more dry conditions, some more drought across these areas, while farther out to the east, we're really getting some really not as much needed rainfall as farther out to the west. Areas farther out to the west would enjoy more of that rainfall as we go farther off into weeks 3 and 4. Once again, we're still going to be seeing those drier temperatures. The farther you go off to the west, It will move a little farther off to the north and west. We'll start to see a little more relief in areas like Mississippi, more averaging in portions of Mississippi and Alabama. Louisiana will start to get some more rainfall. We could see some of those drought conditions start to fade away. Just a slight chance, but we will see some rainfall spread across the area. And once again, some things that are going to be hard to predict is tropical systems. If we get a tropical storm or hurricane landfall in the United States, which is pretty unpredictable out in the future, in October especially, we could get some additional rainfall in many of these areas. But once again, areas like Florida, Georgia, up the East Coast are going to be seeing the brunt of the rainfall as we go throughout much of the month of October. With that, here's a look at our precipitation overview for all these areas in Dixie Alley. North and South Carolina going to be above average, more slightly above average. In North Carolina, we will see some areas drying out the farther you go off to the north. The farther you go off to the south, it's going to be around average. And then you can see South Carolina, Georgia, and Florida are going to remain above average for much of the month of October. Doesn't mean we won't see some dry days, but we will, for most of the month of October, see above average rainfall throughout many of these areas. And that's not even counting what kind of tropical, activity we could see across these areas as we go deeper into the month of October. I'll definitely be watching for that down the road, and I'll talk about the tropics in just a minute. Tennessee and Alabama remaining about average for most of the month of October, with in terms of precipitation, rainfall, not too scarce, but not a lot, not too much rainfall that we're going to be seeing, flooding and stuff like that. And then the farther you go out to the west, Mississippi and Louisiana going to be seeing slightly below average rainfall as we go into much of the month of October. Once again, many of these can change, especially the farther you go off into the future. But this is just, just giving you a general idea of what we're going to be seeing throughout the month of October. Let's take a look lastly now at the tropics. Here's a look at our tropical potential for the first 2 weeks of October. You can see we have two areas that we will be monitoring over the next couple of weeks for development, one being out here in the main development region of the Atlantic Ocean and into parts of the west or eastern Caribbean. You can see we have a 20 to 40% chance of development, mainly for that system that is moving off the coast of Africa. Over the next couple of days, we will see that move into a favorable environment and have the chance to develop over the next couple of weeks, and we'll be monitoring for that development. Most of the models are having this develop already, but farther down the line, the track is still pretty uncertain, so we'll continue to monitor that down the road. But we also have another area, which is down here by the peninsula of Florida and along the coast of the United States, and this is because we are going to have a big buildup of moisture over the next couple of weeks, and with a lot of moisture over the warm waters of the Atlantic or the Gulf of America, you could see some spin-ups pretty quickly. We're not saying that we are going to, and if something spins up in this area, it's not going to have a lot of time to mature, but we definitely could see something with all the moisture that we are going to be seeing. It's a low chance, but there definitely is the potential for that over the next couple of weeks. And then as we go into the last couple of weeks of October, we do expect these areas to shift. We will see a small chance of some development off the off the east coast towards Bermuda with some of these low pressure systems that will be moving off. We'll have the chance to spin up quickly in this area before becoming post-tropical. 10 to 20% chance. It's a pretty low percent chance. Once again, this is just what I'm seeing. Most the models aren't even picking up this far down the road, but it's just we could definitely see some development down the road off the East Coast with some of these big systems we're going to be seeing coming off the coast down the road. And then another area that really catches my eye, the National Hurricane Center has also been highlighting this area for some a medium chance of some potential development as we go later into the month of October. During the same time frame that we had Hurricane Milton, big major hurricane down here in this same area, we'll start to have more chances of some development, more lift into the warm Gulf, where we could definitely see some spin-ups as we go deeper into the month of October, around the Yucatan Peninsula and into the Gulf of America. We'll really be watching this very carefully. Once again, this is still far in the future, down the road, but it's an area that we need to watch going into the future for some potential tropical development, because we're not done with hurricane season yet. And with that being said, that is all the weather info I've got for you today concerning this exclusive monthly forecast. I hope you enjoyed and got something out of this monthly forecast. And once again, some of these things are hard to predict, especially the farther you go out into the future. But I hope this gave you a good picture of what we're going to be seeing throughout the month of October. It's going to be a very interesting month. Things will definitely change down the road, but make sure you subscribe to Dixie Alley Weather Center so you do not miss an update. Once again, thank you so much for tuning into today's video, and I will see you in the next one.